Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video of the Roshake Eruption, and today I've got another top 10 Pokemon countdown video for you guys. But before getting into the actual content here, I just want to thank all of you for the amazing support that I got on my last top 10 video. I think I set our like goal to be 50 on that vid, and we completely shattered that mark, which is pretty insane. So in honor of that, I figured why not go ahead and aim a little higher this time around, so let's try for 70 likes on this video. Alright, and with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into my top 10 worst Pokemon of all time. That's right guys, in this video we're going to be looking at the lowest of the low, the Pokemon that you would never ever use under any circumstances. Two things though before starting up the list. First of all, this is in no way me hating on the Pokemon that I mentioned in this video. The reality is that I actually like more than a few of the Pokemon that I'm about to count down here. So if I've got your favorite Pokemon on this list, I truly apologize and I swear it's nothing personal. Secondly, in terms of criteria used, I tried to judge Pokemon on overall usefulness, so obviously I consider things like base stats, move pool, ability, and other basic things, but I also took into account whether or not the Pokemon evolves into something good. As an example, Magikarp is undoubtedly one of the worst Pokemon ever, but because it evolves into something good, it has less of a chance of being on this list. Additionally, any legendary Pokemon that had poor stats or abilities had a higher chance to be on this list, simply because for me, there's nothing worse than a Pokemon that's rare and super hard to get, but flat out sucks. And don't worry, I realize this rule is a bit controversial, but it only played a very minor role in this top 10. And with that, I think that's enough explanation of the criteria, so let's go ahead and get into the list, folks. Number 10, Regigigas. So when I said the rule about legendary Pokemon will play a very minor role, this is exactly what I was referring to. Now if you take a look at Regigigas' stats, you'll see that between a whopping base 160 attack and base 110, 110, 110 defenses, they're actually quite good. So why is Regigigas so bad? Well, the answer is its ability, Slow Start, which halves its attack and speed for 5 turns. On top of a crippling ability, however, Regigigas has no form of reliable recovery, so if you want to wait out the 5 turns for Slow Start to dissipate, you're pretty much out of luck. And of course, with moves like Roar, Whirlwind, etc., getting rid of Slow Start consistently is pretty much impossible on Regigigas. Combine this with the fact that Regigigas is a legendary Pokemon and quite difficult to obtain, and you've got what I'd say is a recipe for complete disaster. As such, Regigigas is number 10 on my list of all-time worst Pokemon. Number 9, Bidoof. Okay, so I know I said I would try not to put Pokemon that evolve into something decent on this list, but Bidoof is just so bad, the fact that Bibarel has somewhat decent stats doesn't even begin to make up for it. I mean, on top of looking incredibly derpy, Bidoof has horrible stats. Its base 59 HP is by far the highest, and all other stats are below a disappointing base 45. Luckily, the little guy does come with some pretty good abilities in Simple and Moody, but that doesn't change the fact that its move pool is mediocre at best, and its stats are bad to the point of making you want to kick a kitten. So for those reasons, Bidoof is number 9 on my list of all-time worst Pokemon. Number 8, Feebas. This one might come as a surprise to many of you, since most lists would have Feebas higher up, but like I said, for this list, I'm taking into account the usefulness of a Pokemon's evolutions, and in Feebas' case, Milotic is an all-out monster. However, this does not change the fact that Feebas has beyond horrible stats. It has a depressingly low base attack of 15, and an even lower base special attack of 10. The only somewhat decent stat it has is a base speed of 80, but this doesn't mean anything if you can't do any damage to the opponent, or take any hits. Luckily, its move pool is not quite as horrible as another very notorious weak fish Pokemon, but it's still bad enough that Feebas is number 8 on my worst Pokemon of all time. Number 7, Delibird. Delibird's stats are significantly better than Feebas's, but unfortunately, they still suck. Its decent base speed is offset by a physical and special attack of 55 and 65 base, respectively, and its defenses are even worse, if that's even possible. But worse still, Delibird has a horrendous move pool and doesn't evolve into anything good. At least with Feebas, you're getting something out of training it in that you're moving closer towards a Milotic, but that's not the case at all with Delibird. As such, Delibird is my 7th worst Pokemon of all time. Number 6, Magikarp. I would imagine that this one also comes as a surprise, since we all know how horrendously bad Magikarp is, but as with Feebas, this little guy's horrible stats and move pool are offset by the fact that it evolves into the beast that is Gyarados. But the thing is, Magikarp is so bad, it's honestly not even funny. So despite its epic evolution, the helpless fish absolutely deserves a spot on this countdown. Its stats are pretty much a mirror image of Feebas, but worse still, it learns an absolute total of 6 moves: Splash, Tackle, Flail, Bounce, and worst of all, Celebrate and Happy Hour, the first of which does absolutely nothing, and the second of which doubles the prize money you win after a battle. But if you're stupid enough to use Magikarp in the first place, then you're probably losing that battle anyways, so that effectively does nothing as well. In sum, Magikarp is a horrible Pokemon, and thus is number 6 on my list of all-time terrible Pokemon. Number 5. Farfetch'd. Of all the choices on this list, this one pained me the most because I actually sort of like Farfetch'd, but unfortunately, it straight up sucks. As with Delibird, this thing still hasn't gotten an evolution, despite being one of the original 151 Pokemon, and on top of that, it's equipped with horrendous base stats that are all below base 65. I will say though, its move pool is actually not bad between things like Brave Bird and Return, which is why it isn't in the top 3 on this list, but even still, Farfetch'd is unfortunately a very bad Pokemon, and for that reason is number 5 on this list of all-time worst Pokemon. Number 4. Luvdisc. I'm fairly certain that Game Freak hates this thing, because if you thought Farfetch'd and Delibird were bad, you're in for a shock because this thing takes bad to a whole new level. I mean, the thing has decent speed at base 97, but this stat is rendered completely useless when taking into account the fact that it has a base physical attack of 30 and a base special attack of 40. What's an even bigger slap in the face though is the fact that it gets Swift Swim, but what the hell is the point of doubling your speed when you can't do any damage to the opponent in the first place? So guys, I'm sorry to say that Luvdisc sucks, and as such, it is my 4th worst Pokemon of all time. Number 3. Ledian. Now, if you recall at the beginning of the video, I said I would be rewarding Pokemon that evolved into useful things, but Ledian is an example of the complete opposite. I mean, if you look at Ledibuz's stats, they're depressingly bad, but its evolution Ledian is barely an improvement at all. Its only decent stat is its special defense, which is actually quite good at base 110, but this is offset of the fact that it's bug flying, which is a below average typing, and when you consider the 4 times weakness to stealth rocks and plethora of weaknesses, it's just not that great. Its only decent stat is special defense, which is actually quite good at base 110, but this is offset by the fact that it's a bug flying type, which is a below average typing when you consider the 4 times weakness to stealth rocks and plethora of weaknesses. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that Game Freak gave this thing Iron Fist, but its base attack is freaking base 35. That's right, 35! What in the world is the point of increasing the power of punching moves, all of which are physical by the way, when your attack stat is that horrendous in the first place? I'm not really sure what Game Freak was thinking with this one, and for that reason Ledian is number 3 on the list of all-time worst Pokemon. Number 2. Unown. The concept of Unown actually sounds really cool at first. I mean, there are 28 different forms of Unown, and they're relatively rare, usually only available after some sort of special condition has been met, or if the player is in a specific area. But unfortunately, this unique characteristic is offset by the fact that Unown's stats suck. Its base attack and base special attack are 72, and the rest of its stats are all base 48. However, this in itself isn't the reason why Unown is number 2. The reason why Unown is number 2 is that it learns precisely one move, and that's Hidden Power. Which, with the nerf of Hidden Power to 60 in 6th generation, is a horrible move to choose if you can only have one. Between this and its horrible stats, Unown is unfortunately a very disappointing Pokemon, and for that reason it is number 2 on my list of all-time worst Pokemon. Number 1. Male Combee. Combee's stats are laughably bad. Between its base 30 offenses and base 30 HP stat with base 42 defenses, this thing's stats are nearly as bad as Magikarp and Feebas. However, Combee boasts a much worse defensive typing than either of those two in bug flying, and also has a pretty limited move pool that only includes a total of 12 moves. And you guys are probably thinking, Roshake, this in itself is definitely not enough to make it the worst Pokemon of all time, since it evolves into Vespiquen, right? Well, that's not entirely true, since for those of you who are unaware, male Combee can, in fact, not evolve into Vespiquen under any circumstances. So basically, you've got a marginally better version of Feebas that just cannot evolve at all. I mean, seriously, what the hell was Game Freak thinking with this one? At least Magikarp and Feebas evolve into good things, and at least Unown and Ledian can do something under the right circumstances, but male Combee is just straight up useless, no matter what you do with it. For this reason, male Combee is the epitome of a horrible Pokemon, and as such, I'm very sorry to say that it's my number 1 worst Pokemon of all time. Alright folks, and that is pretty much going to do it for this top 10 countdown video. Before signing off here, I want to thank all of you so much for watching and tuning in this time around. Regardless of what you thought on my list, one thing I think we can all agree on is that you guys are the best, and I truly appreciate the support I've gotten from all of you on these in the past. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to drop a like down below and subscribe for more Pokemon top 10 videos in the future. But otherwise, thanks once again for watching, and I will see you in my next countdown video.